This is Waldorf. Today we're going to be talking about Oathmark.
Oathmark, the Battles of the Lost Age.
Yes, and we're doing the good, the bad, and... Whoop, hey.
And some good.
Apparently it's jumping ahead of me.
Yeah.
We're doing the good, the bad, and the other?
Other.
How's that?
And the not ugly.
And the not so ugly. Correct. So anyway, let's get started.
Yeah, so we played some games of this. So
Yeah, I've played 8. I've played 8.
Yeah.
8 games so far.
I've only played 2.
You played 2 of those.
Yeah.
So you played a quarter of what I have.
I have.
But I have played 8.
I'm a quicker learner than you.
Is that what it is?
Because you're older.
You just no. It's just you think you're. I don't need to play this game to know if it's good or bad.
There is that.
I just read the rules and know.
I read and I played a couple times.
More than enough for you.
And I learned from your mistakes.
Yes, by making fun of my mistakes.
Exactly.
I agree.
I know how to reserve.
Got it. Understood.
So, but yeah, no, we've got some games. Read the rules, got some games, and we thought that it'd be a nice video to see the things that we saw that we liked and things we didn't like as much.
Yep.
And things we'd like to see.
All right. So here we go.
So let's start that other slide again.
Let's go back to where we were.
Yeah.
See if it works this time. There we go. So we're going to start with the things we liked.
Yes.
The
we
good.
did really good in the game.
For me, magic system. You as well, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think we agree on most of these things.
I think the magic system's fantastic. Coming from 9th Age and 8th edition Warhammer before that.
7th before that.
And 7th before that. Yeah, there's always these adjustments and changes and everything else. The way this works and, the cleanliness of it, where it's just, this is what you need to get the spell off. This is how many dice you got. Roll it, do it, move on. You don't spend all day thinking about how many dice I'm going to use for this, how many dice I'm going to use for that. Do I need to pull out his dispel dice by trying this? Just the game just moves with this the way it is.
I like most of the mechanics in this game is just a very simple system that gives you subtle results.
Correct.
And the magic does not overpower. You're not going to win a game only with magic. You can play without magic, and you'll probably be fine too. It just gives small attacks, small buffs, those types of things that can help you throughout the game. And it does require some thinking because you often have, multiple spells to choose from. You can only cast one spell per guy, and how you position your mages. All those things they're subtle, but I think learning them in the game makes it just fun, and just how it reacts to the game system. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yep, I agree. Moving on. We have the movement mechanics.
Yeah.
This was also another thing I liked a lot in this one. The the simple move, pivot move, wheel move. It's just very clean. You could I got to tell you, there's several times I've caught myself wheeling as I move. And it's like, no. Those are two separate things. Yeah, again, coming from all other systems where it's...
Yeah, I tend to prefer straightforward movement mechanics in formation gaming. I think this is a problem that a lot of systems have. They try to incorporate complex changes of direction, and they end up having like 27 pages of rules, and it's still confusing.
Right.
But having very basic moves make it, they wouldn't move that way. It's like, it's still a game, and then how do you end up, and that's what it represents, and that works well, and it makes it easy to learn.
Correct.
Once you understand the concept of the center of the unit.
Yeah. Brings us to the next point. Oops, look at that. Brings us to the next 2 points. Well, I guess we're here, so we're going to leave it here. The activation process, I think, is very, very fun and good, where there's a lot of thinking to do with that, where you're like, okay, I've won initiative, but I've got 4 different problems. It's that whole thing, and going back and forth one unit at a time, as opposed to a lot of other games where you move your entire army, and now I have to react to everything you've done.
Well, I was thinking more of the activation in the context of you just don't automatically do everything you want to do.
And that's another point of it too.
I play a lot of historical games, and one of the things I like in the game that adds a little bit of fog of war.
Yes.
And it gives you
command.
A way to have variation in between your different types of armies. Some are better than others. And
right.
The placement of your commanders and all of that impacts the fight and the battle. And that definitely works in this game.
It does. So that was the activation. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
Scoring system. Again, I'll go back to referring to other games. You've played, I don't know, we've played games as well where there's a unit of one. It's like, oh, let's go with the little gamey thing of if I hit that unit one more time and kill one more, they're below whatever break line is, so therefore I get points out of it.
Right.
Or I need to wipe out that to get points for that unit instead of, shooting at the bigger threat, and it makes more sense killing the most you can.
And you're coming more from that GW family of
correct
game, that's always the big thing. It's
yes,
like,
eliminating units
I need
is
to
the big
kill that
thing.
one guy that's behind the hill because all of a sudden I'm gonna get 1,000 points.
Correct.
The other 49 guys I kill don't matter.
Exactly.
So I like that because it's basically it doesn't cause you to do weird things at the end trying to get some points. I like also how a number of the scenarios are not specific to killing units.
Correct.
And I think that's a mindset thing that people sometimes get away from, is they get so locked into the points of units and individual, that you get weird things happening in games. And I really like how they said, okay, if it's a points driven scenario, you kill what you kill. It doesn't matter if it's out of this unit or that unit or whatever. And if it's not a points driven scenario, it doesn't matter what you lose. So,
right. Yeah, it's all about doing this, achieving the objective.
Right. So you take some of, like I said, that last game turn or last 2 game turn weirdness out of it.
Yep. All right. Moving on from there, I did it again. Jeez.
Did it again.
I'm having trouble with this one.
We got big, thick fingers.
Yeah.
There's so much good, you just can't.
I'm clicking and I'm getting impatient where the screen's getting.
You need to stop licking your fingers in between clicks.
So we're going to go with characters.
Yes.
Characters in the game. Yep, again, played other games where characters dominate games. The characters do not dominate this game. Yeah. They're an addition. They're buffs.
This is not a Hero Hammer game.
Correct.
But the characters are not useless either. They can't fight on their own, and they can actually do more than sometimes you'd think they would do.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know. I don't think you ever characters you rarely ever see a character fight on his own in this game, unless they're the last guy left in the unit.
Some of that. Oh yeah, well I think some of the some of the higher level characters they can do okay. They're not going to sweep the field by themselves,
right?
But they don't necessarily aren't going to die right away either. If you have a couple wounds on them, because they all have okay. They don't fight as well as a unit does.
Correct.
A lot of them defend well, so
they defend well, especially if they're mounted and they get the better armor.
Yeah, so they can hold up sometimes.
Right.
So, but they make for, and once again, depending on the army, some armies I think require more than others, and then the characters do, because you have your command buffs, you have your fighty characters, adding your champion dice,
right?
You have your mages, so
yeah,
just enough I think variation to do some interesting stuff.
Okay.
And last we have the actual combat system, and when you first read it, if you're not, I guess it wasn't so unusual because I said I do a lot of historical gaming, so you see some of caps. But this idea that you're capped at 5 dice seems strange.
Correct.
To the person who's used to having either rolling 1 die or rolling all the dice in the world.
Yes.
But that cap, along with how the modifiers work, it's very straightforward, very elegant. Not a lot of modifiers, yet it still gives you enough variation in the game.
Right.
You also don't have the alpha strike that like you do in a lot of games, which I always hated. Oh, I got the charge off, you lose.
Correct.
That doesn't exist in this game unless the thing that you're charging has nothing left to it.
Right, it's very small already.
Yeah, but both sides fight.
Correct.
So even an uneven fight, at least you get a chance to do something. And then it's really it's more of a push game than it is just wiping out your opponent in one fell swoop. And even the subtleties of how disorder and elimination work in the game. You can do the 1-2 with units.
Right, and you need to do the 1-2.
Right.
That applies, a lot in the shooting system as well.
Exactly. It also depends on your opponent. I mean, if you're playing
Right.
against guys with really high morale, the 1-2's not going to.
Not going to
You're
come
going to
off that.
you just have to kill those guys.
Correct.
But there doesn't tend to be very many of those guys.
Right.
So I like how you just have a few dice. But I said I just think it's easy to understand, and it, like all the mechanics in this game, you understood it pretty quickly, and then you're off to play.
And as far as number of, this also means that a good sized unit's never going to get wiped out in a single combat.
Right.
Kind of like you were saying. Now, I guess there will be exceptions because I did play one game with a dragon and managed to do like 17 wounds to something.
Yes.
But I've never seen anything anywhere near that before, or after.
Yeah, generally speaking, not. Yeah.
Correct. But anyway, so that's the combat system.
So those things that we really liked.
Those are the. I mean, I like a lot about the game, not just this. I'm just saying these are the ones that
and these
really.
Are things that we just think were they're better than them. We really like.
They really stood out.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can manage this.
Yeah, which brings us to the bad.
To the bad.
The things that we don't really like.
So first thing, unit arcs. Can we just go 45 degrees off the corners?
How it's done is annoying.
How it's done is from front corner to back corner of the unit means your front arc gets bigger and bigger, and your flanks get smaller and smaller as you lose unit models.
Yes.
Which is very weird.
Right. So you start off with a full block of guys. You're almost at 45 degree.
Correct.
And by the time you're down to your final rank, you're down to like 15 degrees.
Exactly. You've got this huge arc off the flanks.
So just because you have more guys, you don't see as well.
Or your flanks start to disappear.
Right, and you get to the point. Yes,
this is the big thing.
The narrow guys don't have any flanks hardly.
And as we've discovered in later games is. Models on Cav have a very limited front arc.
Yeah, single models. It'd be like a
single model on Cav. Yeah,
it's quite.
Now you can be gamey with that and use it to your advantage by pivot it so you only can see something.
You can just like, but you could do that even with the 45 degrees.
Yeah.
It's just it requires constantly checking the arcs. We've got the the laser line out there all the time. I think it would just be a lot cleaner of a game. If it was just 45 degrees.
And you could use the same templates we've used for years with the 45 degree arc templates.
Exactly.
Would be the other benefit to that in my mind.
So I'm hoping there's an update at some point that they do some better arcs.
Next one up is the minimum size units. Now, this is saying there should be a minimum size to units.
Yes.
Well,
there is. It's one.
There is. It's one.
Yeah.
If they capped it at 5 combat dice per unit, something to that effect, would be fine. But the problem is, coming from other games where chaff is important, and even in this game, if I would have if the last game I played, if I'm defending an Oathmark, if I've got 10 units of 1 out there and just throwaway type troops.
Yep.
Just walking out there, getting in front of, causing him an activation to get through each one, he'll never take my Oathmark.
Exactly.
And it's something you don't do as a normal game. Like if I'm playing you, I'm not going to throw inside. Even though I can, I'm not going to do it. But it's there and it's available. And everyone's got to play in a game group where you've got the one gamey rule guy who's going to do stuff like this.
It's going to min-max it. And you say, if you play with the standard rules, you can only have 4 per unit. Well, you've got like 5 different units of infantry.
Oh, you mean 4 different types of each unit? Yes.
So which means you have 20 individual guys out there.
Correct.
Use hardly any of your points, and still have points for the good stuff in your army.
Right.
And just basically make it so none of your opponent can fight with anything that he needs to.
Yeah.
And you just keep him pinned down, especially with so many scenarios where you got to move around and take things. It just makes it impossible to send 2 guys in front of everybody.
Well, and then the 4 guys, like you were just saying, though, the four units of each troop type. If you technically play by the rules, that's 4 units of each troop type from every list.
Yes.
Which is even worse.
If you go with that point, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could have a table full of individual models.
Correct.
of 1 wound, 1 hit point, and then a couple of battle units to do your fighting.
Correct.
And some shooting.
Yeah, and would that be a fun game?
And if you like to shoot a lot, it's a good game.
I guess.
So, but yeah, no. So they really, I think, need to cap the minimum to be 5 attacks. So which usually means
5 combat dice.
5 combat dice.
Or
which usually means 5 guys in a unit, or three guys for cavalry, or 2 plus a champion, 2 plus a character,
or any individual model, because I think that Ichi is set to be a single monster, which can't be in units, but it only's got 3 or 4 attacks.
Yeah. I'm speaking. Yeah, I think if we're talking about single,
I'm mostly talking about cav and
any single
infantry.
hit point.
Correct.
Model. Multiple, they're fine. Monsters and large.
I'm not even that crazy about being able to field the single trolls, or ogres or whatever, but whatever.
Yeah, they don't bother me as much as the
right.
Because also sometimes it's good just to eliminate units and stuff. It doesn't hurt you any, so yeah.
Okay.
You can't break a single model unit either, so it also breaks the mechanics. So you can't have like a chain reaction.
Because the model just gets killed.
Right.
It doesn't hurt anything. No one cares if that model.
So you're actually incentivized to do it. And,
correct.
I'm not a fan.
All right.
Clip and slide. So how it works now is if you get into melee, you move into contact, and say you can't. You're supposed to try to get your center points into contact, and maybe something is in the way. So you can't quite do that. So what you do is you hit him however best you can, and then you get a free slide over so your center point is contacting. That sounds okay on the surface, but what it causes to do, if somebody else is in the way, you actually bump it. If it's on your side, you bump them out of the way so you can still fight.
Right.
So it can cause some. You already have plenty of flexibility with your movement with the wheels and the pivots. That can cause you to do weird things just to, I want to get my guy out of combat, so I'm going to charge him with this guy so I can slide over and get him out of harm's way, or do something like that.
You can push your own units. You can actually push, I think you can push the opponent unit too.
And considering that in the game that you're fixed on how many combat dice you have, there's no need for the sliding.
Right.
So...
Yeah, just hit where you hit and fight the combat and deal with it.
You shouldn't push people out of the way. I really don't like that, because I just see how you can gameize that. It's just not...
Yeah, we had a really weird situation in one of my games, which you were there for.
Yeah.
Which caused an odd thing. Basically got a unit that was about to get smashed, pushed it way back and out of harm's way.
Right.
Which was completely unintentional.
Right.
I would have anyway, but it's what it was.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary, because the combat system, it's fixed anyway. So
right, your dice are fixed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, fixed-ish.
Fixed-ish.
Yeah.
I don't know what ish is.
They're capped. They're not fixed, I guess we should say.
And now after all that, doesn't seem to want to change pages.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Okay.
Finally. Well, there we go. Single model pivots. This is where you're the single model unit, and the opponent moves, and if you haven't activated, you get a pivot. It's just a little cumbersome.
This might be my least favorite. This thing that I hate the most in the game. Yeah, because basically, I guess the idea is a single model unit can maneuver better, but it happens. You do it based on your opponent's move. So
no, it's during any other activation. You can even do it during your own.
You can, but the idea
most of the time it's going to be during your opponent's.
Ends up being during your opponent's move.
Right.
And I don't like that part of it. I actually don't mind the pivot. I just don't like it being during the opponent's
Correct.
move.
If they would change that to be single models can pivot before they do anything in their activation, get a free pivot to start their turn. That might clean it up better.
That would be the easy way to do it.
The problem is you're always say, hold on, let me see if I want to move this guy. Do I want to pivot this guy? Do I want to pivot this guy? And then you get to your turn and it's like, oh, okay. Oh, I forgot to pivot this. Do you mind if I pivot this now? And anyway.
So I wouldn't even mind it as much if it was you just could do it on your own turn because you're the active player.
Right.
I'm not saying that'd be perfect, but it really bothers me that you're doing it during your opponent's
turn.
because it breaks.
Yeah.
To me, it breaks the mechanics of the game.
There's a lot I don't like about it. The other thing, I mean, I don't know what I don't. I haven't talked to the author or whatever, so I don't know what his intention was with this rule.
Yep.
But I'm thinking it's a single. My thinking was maybe he was trying to do something where single models are hard to get around and flank and get to their sides without them being able to react to it. And if that's the case, then the fact that my guy over here on the right hand corner of the board, 4 feet away, you move a unit and now he can react to it is kind of odd as well.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
So I don't really know what the intention was, but I'm not sure that there wasn't a better way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not clear. I mean, the easy thing is just let them pivot. The easy thing is just make them the same as any other units.
So they have to maneuver just like any other unit.
Right.
Correct.
That's the easy thing.
That's the easiest
thing.
And
I think if you had, the universal 45 degrees visual arcs, that would also
clean it up a bit. Yeah, I think you're right.
That one.
But that's something I would like to see some type of modification.
Like
maybe in a version 2 or an errata.
Yes.
Anyway. So that's going to bring us to surprises. And these are mainly things that when I originally read the rules or heard about the game, I thought were going to be a problem or I did not think I was going to like.
Yeah, to me it was just things they didn't... On paper, it wasn't what I thought.
Correct.
It wasn't what it ended up being in practice.
Exactly, that type of thing.
Or things I thought you wouldn't like.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
It's a big list. We didn't have time for that list.
Yeah.
D10s. I've never been a big fan of D10 games. But the capping it at 5 dice kind of fixed that for me. And gives you the room, a little bit of room for the variety you need with the troops and stuff.
I'm not opposed to D10 games as long as you don't have to roll too many of them. I think the worst thing you can do is do what you do in D6 games with the bucket full of dice with D10s is a nightmare.
Oh, yes.
But if you have only small numbers of D10s, I think it's fine. So I wasn't worried about that concept because of the caps and how they worked.
Right.
The subtlety of how, and some of that's just not reading the rules as clearly as I did when I first saw them, is how the D10s stack and when you're rolling multiple D10s and all of that. And I thought, like for the activations, you roll.
Oh, correct.
You usually roll
2 or 3, maybe.
Right. Guys there, and how the effect, and you roll one less when you're disordered.
Yeah.
That subtlety was not as clear to me when I first read it. It's like, I'm not sure how this is gonna work. It looks like at first it was seeming a little too random. It's like it's not, and that's always the risk with D10s. Quite often, the 110 swing it ends up being random events become more important than regular events. That was not the case here. Just because how the stacking works.
Agreed. And like you said, I would dread seeing a game like 8th edition Warhammer or 9th Age game where you roll a D10 instead of a D6, where I'm rolling 30 D10s.
Yes.
And then sitting there sorting through. Oh, that would just be a complete. I dread if the system that I like goes to a D10 that's like that, because
just as subtly people don't realize you can see shapes, so you can pick out pips pretty quickly.
Yes.
You can't pick out numbers really quickly.
No, and I mean,
some people can, but most people can't.
And D10, even looking at D10s compared to D6s, they don't land as well.
Right.
They get cocked all the time. The arguments over cocked dice would be all over the place.
Yeah.
The fact they get bumped all the time, or I didn't quite see that because anyway, just endless problems I would expect from a D10 game.
Yeah.
More than 5 dice.
But because you're rolling at most 5 dice in this
Correct.
At a time, and as little as 1, depending on what we're talking about.
Right.
It works fine.
It does. I'm a fan of that. All right. So next, what do we got? Can I click it? Am I having trouble with clicking again? There we go. Got it finally. The speed of play. When I first read through the rules and everything, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. Because you go, I go with model, picking a unit, activating it, and moving it, I thought was going to drag this game down to a halt. Just from reading the rules. Surprisingly, thus it's in this category, I haven't seen that in games.
I was a little worried about indecisive players.
Right.
Do I move this unit or do I move that unit? Or I've got 4 spells. Which one am I going to cast?
Right.
So I had a little concern about, people slow playing the game. But yeah, I haven't generally seen that.
No, and I'm liking the speed of play so far.
Yeah.
It's roughly, we're playing 25. We've been playing 2,500 point games. If you've noticed, actually, some of the times we haven't said, have we?
Yeah.
So far, every game except for the first one have been 2,500 point games, which I kind of like that size.
Right.
And they've been finishing in 3 to 4 hours, which is roughly the same time as a casual, 9th age game or 8th edition
Yeah,
Warhammer.
I thought you had some that finished in less than like 2.5 hours.
Maybe.
Yeah, that I recall.
Could be, but anyway, that's less than 3.5, 3 or 4 hours, like I said.
You said it's 3, but yeah.
I'll let you go.
Unit variation. So when I first read all the stat lines, it's like, a dwarf is only 1 better pip on this than a human, and an orc and goblin is just 1 higher. Didn't seem to be that much variation. So I was a little worried that, not to criticize games, but I was thinking like a Kings of War where everything to me seems the same.
Correct.
That you'd have this 2 units of spearmen would basically be the 1 pip wouldn't matter that much, but 1 pip does matter a lot.
It does.
I'm just saying a lot. It does matter. I shouldn't say a lot. You're not gonna. Quite often, it is the difference in winning or not winning a combat, and how you stack up your modifiers or adding ranks and what you choose to play at minimum size units, etc., is really, I think, impacted by those single pips here and there.
Correct.
So, like I said, I have not found, at least not in my opinion, haven't found that the armies feel too similar. They have differences to me.
They definitely have a big feel, because I noticed when I was playing elves, the big thing is that unit variation and activation. You can activate easier, which, okay, fine, that's fine. That's not going to kill me, because if I fail my activation, I can still move.
Right.
It's not going to kill me. But then I notice I get into a combat, I do 3 or 4 wounds to something, and it doesn't care.
It doesn't disorder.
It just bounces back, and okay, we're ready again, guys. Here we come.
Yep.
Whereas you play, I'm playing primarily so far, I've been playing a lot of orcs and goblins, whereas with the activation of 6, you take a couple of wounds, and you take 2 wounds, now you're talking about needing an 8 to come back from that.
Yep.
So I've noticed the unit variations a lot. The little bit pips here and there has made a big difference, and I've, again, enjoy that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so going from there, what do we got next?
It's a surprise.
Do you know? We have a blank and then the magic system.
Okay, something weird happened there.
Well, surprising in the magic system. Again, I thought the magic system looked like it was a little too kind of bland and not going to do much.
I thought it was like, it was like, why did it even bother? It was almost the way it read to me. It wasn't really going to show up in the game. Once again, and I think that goes to the unit variation, because a lot of the spells are a pip here, a pip there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, a lot of the units are that way, but you don't realize, that 2-inch movement's a big freaking deal, or that +1 combat save is a big deal.
Or shift. Oh, that shift really made a big difference, because now I do a shift. Now I can do a double straight to double move to you, and now you're within range when I didn't think you were.
I remember when I first read like the fireball spell, it's like, it's 3 dice. What's that going to do? And then I started using it. I go, this is really good.
Yes.
When you use it in combination with units by itself, it doesn't do much.
You find that disrupted orc and goblin unit, and now you do a wound to it, and they're not happy.
It's not there anymore.
Correct.
So
yeah. So that's definitely a big plus. The way that worked out to me. I think I know what happened with this, and we'll see it in just a minute. So there you go. See, look at that.
Yes.
It was when I added one, and it's anyway. So the unit size cap. I was.
You just wanted to represent it visually by having a top and a bottom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was not thrilled at all when I saw the maximum 20 models in a unit.
I read that, and I knew that you wouldn't be happy at all when you saw that.
I was like, what do you mean I can only have 20 models in a unit? I can have no more units than this, elite elven force can have 20. Where's my mob of 50 orcs or goblins to
yes.
deal with this elite unit?
And all infantry is capped at 20 and cavalry is capped at 10. So, yeah. So it ends up being kind of like medium-sized units if you're someone who played Warhammer or Ninth Age or something like that.
Right.
If you were somebody who liked to show up with a horde of 50 guys, at first sight, it's like, oh. I wasn't too concerned with it just because there were enough units on the table.
Right.
And most of the armies I play are medium-sized anyway. So.
Well, part of my concern as well is coming from out of those other game systems where you need the numbers so that elite other armies unit can't come up and just blow you out in one turn. But that's built into the rest of the rules, so it's not necessarily. Right. It's not necessary. It just means you have more units, which is actually much more flexible than having the one big unit that can deal with it.
I think I noticed that in the last game you played, where you had a substantial unit advantage over your opponent.
Right. Yeah.
Which means you were always moving last until he shot you down. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's a big deal because it puts pressure on people.
When the units start disappearing.
Especially in this I go, you go, where you need to think about your supports and everything, or you're going to get flanked all the time.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, again, I was terrified of this one, to tell you the truth, because I didn't think that was going to make me happy. Next thing we have?
Character roles. Yeah, you've got command characters that help you with your ability to move and rally your units, and as well as activations. You've got your fighty characters, your champions that add like champion dice. You've got your magic users, and when you first read them, you go, "Oh, okay, they're all kind of the same. They don't really do much. They're just I'm not sure that I even want them, except for maybe a general and a magic user." But once again, a pip here, a pip there,
correct,
makes a difference. Adding that champion,
champion die alone is much bigger than I thought it would be.
A lot of these characters have 2 or 3 attacks, less than a unit, but in the right situation, it's still enough. And especially, they tend to be defended pretty well. Yeah,
I saw again, this is another one I saw that I was like, well, why would I ever need a champion? What's he going to do for me?
Yep.
He has 3 dice, combat dice, but my unit has 5.
Yep.
I don't need him for that. What's he do for me? He gives me a champion dice. Yay. When I was first reading it. Now that I've been playing it, I was like, oh, that champion die alone is really nice.
It's a good chance it's going to give me an extra hit, which
correct,
is a big deal. Or it's going to keep my cavalry unit fighting at full strength for an extra casualty.
And then it came up in a game when I was playing against the on the undead, where the guy had a wraith or something that hit me in the flank. Well, I was of a cav unit. I was only going to have the one guy to fight it, but the champion can do that.
Yep.
And he has the champion die as well. So it's just, again, there's just character roles in this game really shocked me.
They do. And you have the high level, just general guys who can move with an activation. They can move multiple units.
Correct.
And when you have a small elite army, you don't notice it that much. But you have like these bigger armies, you can really pounce on somebody and do the old 1, 2, 3 on them.
Yes, shoot, and then attack, or go just jump on him. Hit him and then hit him again. So if you have things positioned and set up right.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, the characters, and which from reading the rules I didn't think they were, but they do all this without dominating the game.
Right.
Which we mentioned earlier. Another thing that is nice.
Yep.
Because they're all support. All right, moving on. It's a little there.
Next slide.
So we're going to move to our wish list. Things we would like to see changed or happen
in the future.
Correct.
And I'm sure some of these things are already probably in the plan, but
correct.
We'll see.
And we're going to have a bit weird of a thing on this one.
We're
going to have another couple bouncing things.
Okay.
To me, shooting ranges. They've taken the time to do have every type of weapon has a different thing, different range, including the elven longbows. Elven bows have the longer range than the human bows, but it's 2 inches.
Yes, it's 20 inches versus.
It's 20 versus 22. It's like, okay,
Why bother?
I understand you wanted to give the elves something better, but 2 inches, it really means nothing. Well,
Yes, at least not in shooting.
yeah. So I mean, if you're gonna go to the trouble to give everything different ranges rather than just kind of like have standard 6, 12, 24 range bands, yeah, make it a different one. 22, I'm just not hot.
Yeah, it's the same with
anyway.
It's the same with the catapults and all that. It's like the variation just isn't enough to make it make sense.
Correct. So that's just the shooting range comment. And what do we got next? And the question is, where do we have it next?
Where's it going to pop up?
There we go. Look at that.
Is it going to pop up?
It's not going to pop up at all. There it is right below it. Shooting weapons.
Shooting weapons. Yes. Right now, you basically have bows and elf bows for handheld.
Right.
And you have ballista bolt throwers, heavy catapults, and light catapults.
Well, you have artillery and bows, basically. Yeah. Well, they do have slings.
Yes, I forgot about the slings.
Slings are there for the goblins, at least.
I would like just to see more, I'll call it army-specific shooting weapons, like maybe some crossbows, some handguns, maybe trying to stay away from gunpowder.
Right.
You got your regular bolt thrower, maybe have a different size of bolt throwers. Just a few more that are army-specific, instead of, having the same generic shooting weapons for every army. I'd like to see that variation in the army a little bit.
Right.
And that can affect range. That could affect any number of things you could do with it. You could add special rules to certain ones,
Correct. Yeah. There's some variety that can be added into that.
Just a little variety. I always like variety. But I don't want every army having the exact same thing.
Again, you're right. Yeah. Which brings us to the next one, which is more armies.
Right.
More different races. I would like to see.
Because now we have orcs and goblins, we have dwarves, we have humans, we have elves, and they just added undead.
For the 5th, right?
For the 5th.
If you consider orcs and goblins 1 and not 2.
Yes,
which I always will.
We will for the moment.
So you really have 5 armies to deal with right now. And if you're not doing our prejudice, which is mono armies.
Right.
That's you've got 5 lists to choose from. If you're playing the pick and choose whatever you want, that gives you a huge variety, I guess, with the 5 armies.
It does.
But I would like to see more mono armies.
But there's a lot of people that have armies from existing game systems,
right?
And they're not representative now, and they're common things you see in a lot of game systems. So I mean, our workaround as well. I'm going to play my beast herds as orcs. I'm going to play my lizard men as orcs.
But maybe give them elf magic, like I think you suggested that.
But these are very common armies: rat men, beast men, and lizard people. Those things are all armies that you see in a lot of game systems. Then the whole evil versus good alignment type of thing. So you have evil humans and good humans,
Right.
So there's some of that you can do by just crossing up magic casters with races. But I'd like to see them do a little more variation, just for those people that have those armies, so they feel they can jump into the game system and say, "Oh, they don't have my army, so I'm not playing."
Correct.
And they say, "Oh, just play them as orcs." Oh no, it's not the same.
Right.
Because everyone kind of likes to have their own little niche. I think more gamers are that way than are the other way.
We've got a friend who plays rats or the Ratmen all the time.
Yep.
Loves the Ratmen. His favorite army. Played it forever. He could play them in this as something else.
Yes.
And play them. But that's not his army.
Yep.
I mean, even if the rules if they do come out with a Ratman army, it's completely different from whatever he's got in mind for rats. At least they're rats, and that's his army.
Yeah.
As opposed to, they're the same as orcs now because I'm playing them as orcs or goblins or whatever. So that's the problem, is people won't want to jump in with that because of that.
Right.
So
I think that, that's, something that and they don't have to be that different than even the existing armies, but just, once again, if you do some variation in some of the shooty stuff, a little variation in the magic,
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, even the stats can be similar as other guys, depending. Just the mixes might be different,
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that. I think that's, if there's one thing that'll help the game become more popular, it's getting more armies out there.
Correct. Expanding behind the 5.
So I think that's limiting people from jumping in.
Correct.
At least with our
group.
Within our groups, which is pretty large.
Yeah, we do have a large group.
Then we have more unit types. You have all the different armies, and they have, I'll call it, similar unit listings. They just introduced the undead, which introduced chariots.
Correct.
I wouldn't mind seeing maybe one or two other armies have chariots. Maybe orcs and goblins get a chariot, for example.
Yeah, or nice. Maybe even elves.
Or maybe elves. I wouldn't give it to everybody. They also have a few generic monsters at the back of the book. I'd like to see some more of those.
Correct.
That would be kind of neat.
I was actually kind of disappointed in one of the expansions, the Battle Sworn. The expansion to that had 3 monsters individually. Had 3 monsters in there, but didn't put points on them because they were designed to be, board monsters.
Right.
Again, additional monsters would be fun.
Right. And I'd like to see, because another thing that's common in a lot of fantasy systems are characters or guys mounted on various fantastical beasts, like a character on a griffin or a character on a Pegasus, or even a small unit of guys riding some kind of giant beasts or whatever. I'd like to see some of those creep into the game. Once again, you don't want to turn it into Hero Hammer. You got to be careful of that.
Yes, definitely.
And have certain limits. But once again, a lot of people have these models already, and not having the ability to use them, I think that hurts, and it would just add more interest. Be more interesting.
Adds more variety to the game, and like you said, it includes more of their stuff, and I can use more of my stuff. So
exactly.
Okay. The next thing on my list, of course, is the top thing on this list. Apparently, it was point adjustments. I would like to see some type of errata point adjustments moving forward. Just kind of and I'd like to see the phone not ring.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe during one video we do.
Nice.
Would be kind of nice.
Seems to be this was a very important thing. Somebody's calling in to tell us.
Exactly. What have you? Whoever's listening to this, and it's not public yet. So anyway.
Yeah.
No. Point adjustments. I would like to see maybe a review and an adjustment for points that necessarily, because we think among other things, I think the heavy catapult might be a little low in what its point cost is, because the thing rips through everything.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Or maybe even adjustment to the whatever that rule is, the indirect fire rule could correct it, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, something there that could knock it down a little bit. But anyway, point adjustments, because you get through them and you say, okay, well, yeah, it's not quite worth what it is. And
well, I look at the difference between a light catapult and a heavy catapult. It's like, why would I ever take the light catapult?
You would never take the light catapult.
Because I want that additional, pip on the die is such a big
pip
deal.
On the die, the additional range of it.
The range on top of it.
The extra wound, everything's so just, anyway.
And it just shoots so far in comparison to other units.
So much better.
And I've played elves, and I think maybe some of their combat guys are a little pricey.
Not happy with them.
I'm happy with them, but because you're paying for that morale ability.
Correct. Yeah, and the morale is just huge. The 3 is just incredible.
It's a big deal. But some of the units, like the light cavalry, it's like these guys make no sense.
Yeah, and I really like what they did, even with the undead, is where they have a low activation score. I mean, it's a low number,
right?
But you only get 1 die because they're unthinking. They added that unthinking.
Well, that was a nice variation.
Which I thought was really nice.
But
it's a good opinion.
So so I think just with more play, that some tweaking is probably necessary. They fixed the dwarf mage costs in the errata.
Yeah.
So I think that.
And there's a couple other things, like the elven mounted huntsman, or their combat die, I think is wrong. It says 1, it should be 2, I believe.
But it's not in the errata.
It wasn't in the errata that I noticed.
That's why they're so terrible. They're 55 points each for 1 attack die, and
correct.
defensive like a 9 or
But
10. I don't remember.
if we ever play it, it'll be 10. I mean, they'll have 2 attack die because, I'm not going to argue with that. It should be there.
Because all the other cavalry have that.
Every other cav, yeah.
So something's wrong there. Either the points are completely wrong or the dice are completely wrong. But
yeah, they just missed the die.
I think so. But yeah, just some of the points things. And then you have some of the monsters that seem to be a little pricey when they have really high activations.
Some of them, yes.
Yeah, others not so much. So,
Correct.
I mean, not overall, but just a few things here and there.
Yep. And then, but it, even even if it comes down, the game hasn't been out that long.
Right.
But even a yearly review, if that was planned, and one thing that will not be on this list that I just thought of that I meant to add here is some type of official forum for this. For Oathmark would be wonderful.
Yes, that's not on Facebook.
To where a non-Facebook forum where somebody could come through and actually put together some Q&A and build a FAQ based on the.
Well, I think if they just did proper FAQs, they can post it on the Osprey site with the other stuff.
Correct.
That's to me, that's the place for it. That's
right.
They're printing the rules.
Yep.
Heck, they could even sell them.
And the last one on the list
is more scenarios.
Yep.
You got a lot of scenarios.
There's a lot of scenarios if you buy the additional books.
Yes, but you can never have enough. Which I think that's a good sign for further books.
It is.
What I like to see with the further books is more scenarios and more armies. Each book introducing those things.
Correct.
That's what I really like to see.
An army. I would love to see a book that has an army and maybe 3 or 4 scenarios in the back.
Or 2 armies.
Or even 2. Yeah, because you got to fill up the book. So an army or 2 and then some scenarios. And then maybe just some random additions to other armies.
Yeah, because now they're doing, I call it building stuff on campaigns or doing stuff like that.
Correct. It's all built around campaigns.
And
not all, but
there's a lot of tournament players out there that don't do campaigns, or that won't be their primary gaming.
Right.
There's a lot of people just do one-off games, and so a lot of people with these armies that aren't represented, and variations in scenarios are always nice because people start getting really good at specific scenarios and designing their armies, particularly in a tournament setting, around certain scenarios. And,
correct.
The best way to break some of that is having more of them. And like the last book, I was kind of neat where they had like the mini campaign scenario packs. You could play them as standalone, or it's help. You could actually run a tournament based on those 3 scenarios, for example.
Yes.
Like a good one-day tournament.
Right.
So more of that. So yeah, people don't get so used to it, because I think it also affects how you build your armies, because certain compositions are better for certain scenarios.
Correct.
And it stops you from doing some of that.
Yeah, there's a couple scenarios we have not played. There's a couple scenarios I haven't played. There's a ton of scenarios I haven't played. I've only played 8 games of this thing, and we've made up a couple scenarios for them.
Right.
But the scenarios out of the book, I mean, the river crossing scenario, I'm not a big fan of that one. Where we've got the one bridge, one place to cross the river, and it's basically hold the bridge. So you're basically looking at a slugfest in the center of the game.
Right. Or having an archery advantage.
Or, an archery advantage. There's another one that has the rain scenario, which, anyway. There's just, again, like you were saying, the more the better.
Yep.
So, and that's it. Having said all this, just want to say it's a wonderful game. I've had a great time playing this game.
Yeah, it's fun. It's simple. It takes a while to master, but it's easy to learn to play.
Correct.
I think that's one of the best compliments you can give a game.
Yep. All right. That's going to do it for now, I guess.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening.